And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook on this Saturday, March 22nd, 2025. We start with the state of the sea ice on this Saturday afternoon and of north. Note we have colder air coming down on northerly winds along the west coast and pushing southward all the way down toward the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. This has allowed for some ice growth in Kuskokwim Bay and also into Bristol Bay as air temperatures, at least overnight into the early morning, have been down into the single digits above or below zero along the YK deltas, and as a result that has allowed this ice to redevelop. And we're also seeing a southward drift of the pack ice as a result of that northerly component to the wind. And as far as what we have coming up here late tonight into Sunday morning, this stationary front divides Arctic air to the east over the eastern Bering west coast and especially the heart of it over eastern Russia. And that's going to peel southward. The core of that Arctic air is going to come quickly southward and cross the eastern Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula, especially later Sunday and into Monday. Meanwhile, we have a couple areas of low pressure, not especially strong, but this next one will fling another front and more moisture across the panhandle. Lower elevations rain, but as you get in the mid-upper elevations, especially further north, northern panhandle, White Pass under winter weather advisory for several inches of snow coming between Sunday late afternoon and Monday morning. And then as we get into Sunday, we find that northwest flow across the eastern Bering, allowing that cold air to push all the way south of the Alaska Peninsula. We have low sitting south of Kodiak Island, keeping rain and snow showers going along areas there of Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait, and the Alaska Peninsula. Meanwhile, this low pulls a front across the panhandle and will tend to enhance some of the areas of rain and higher elevation snow. For Monday afternoon, we still have a low sitting out here southeast of Kodiak Island, another impulse of just low pressure trough rotating around that low, just bringing some additional moisture northward. Meanwhile, there's a ridge of high pressure from the Chukchi Sea Bering Strait all the way down south of the central Aleutians, and this next front will come eastward and gradually weaken through Tuesday, but initially out ahead of this there will be gale force winds along that front as it advances through the western Aleutians, especially on Monday. So here's the marine forecast on Sunday. We have that one low pressure area off of the outer coast there in the eastern Gulf. So we expect for the inner channels, north winds 20 knots there in Lynn Canal, 3-4 foot waves. Northeast winds to 25 knots, Stevens Passage, 3-4 foot waves. And then southeast winds to 25 knots with waves of 6 to 8 feet here down in Dixon Entrance. For the outer coast, the nearshore waters south of Sitka off of Craig, look for southerly winds upwards of 25 knots. Once we get toward Sitka and outside the icy strait, southeast to east winds 30 to 35 knot gales with waves as high as 12 feet. And then on the backside of that low circulation, east winds turn more northerly by Cape Suckling with waves of 8 feet and 20 knot winds. On Monday, notice the uniformity finally across much of the panhandle. Inner channels, we're looking at southeast winds 20 to 25 knots. Waves generally running 4 to 5 feet. For the outer coast, south to southeast winds turning easterly up toward Cape Suckling at 20 to 25 knots and waves generally falling in that 10 to 12 foot range. For the northwestern Gulf, outside of Hinchinbrook Entrance, northeast winds 15 knots, 20 knot northeasterly winds off the Seward Coast. North winds within Prince William Sound with 2 foot waves. As we drop down along Cook Inlet, northeast to north winds 15 to 20 knots, waves 4 or 5 feet, especially off Anchor Point down into the area of Kamishak Bay. And then for Monday, we're looking at easterly winds within Prince William Sound at 10 knots with 2 foot waves. Easterly winds outside of Hinchinbrook Entrance, 15 knots with 5 to 6 foot waves. And then coming down through Cook Inlet, northeast to north winds 15 to 20 knots, most notably some waves running 6 to 7 feet there just west of Homer and off of Anchor Point. Across the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island for Sunday, northeast winds 15 knots in the vicinity of Kodiak Island, those winds as we come across the Alaska Peninsula will turn northwesterly to 30, even 35 knots there off of False Pass. Again, we have these brisk northwesterly winds associated with that push of Arctic air that's going to cross through this region. There could also be some snow showers or snow squalls and areas of freezing spray within Bristol Bay, and certainly here along sections north of the Alaska Peninsula in the southeast Bering. So on Monday, north winds 15 to 20 knots around Kodiak Island, and generally northwest winds 30-35 knots again on Monday. Waves 4 to 6 feet North Pacific side, as high as 10 to 12 feet on the Bering side. Again, potential for some heavy freezing spray in that corner there of the Bering. Now the eastern Aleutians on Sunday, we'll see northwest winds right around 30 knots as we get toward Atka, Adak, northwest winds 20 to 25 knots, and then those winds flip back around to the southeast and increase to 35 knot gales from Kiska westward through Shemya. And then as that front approaches and moves through the western half of the Aleutians out ahead of it, we're looking at south to southwest gales 35 to 40 knots on Monday west of Adak through Kiska and Shemya. As we get out toward the central Aleutians, south winds to 25 knots between Adak and Atka. And then for the eastern Aleutians, northwest winds, strongest 35 knot northerly winds in the vicinity of Unalaska Dutch Harbor. And then for the southwest coast, within Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Bay, northwest winds to 30 knots. There will be areas of heavy freezing spray in this region on Sunday. Along the lower Yukon coast into Norton Sound, winds will be northwesterly 20 to 25 knots. Potential with a northerly component to wind to cause the ice to drift a little southward. And then on Monday, north winds out of Kuskokwim and Bristol Bay. Could be some heavy freezing spray in these areas. North winds to 25 knots, the Pribilovs, with waves running 6 feet. And then along the lower Yukon coastline up into Norton Sound, a continuation of northwesterly winds at 20 to 25 knots. Through the Bering Strait on Sunday, winds will be northwesterly 20 to 25 knots. As we go up through the Chukchi Sea coast, winds turn easterly once you get north of Point Lay. So easterly winds dominate from Wainwright up through Utqiagvik, all along the Beaufort Sea coast at 25 knots. There could be some areas of lighter blowing snow associated with that. And then on Monday, generally east winds of 20 knots will occur from Kaktovik through Utqiagvik and Wainwright, and then those winds turn back around to the northwest through the lower portion of the Chukchi Sea at 15 to 20 knots. And as we come through the Bering Strait on Monday, winds will generally be out of the northwest at 20 knots along the west side of the Seward Peninsula and the north side of St. Lawrence Island.